Welcome to today's video, guys, where we're going to be talking about the electrical system in my 2021 Land Cruiser Prado and basically how I've set it up for it to handle my photography and touring needs. This is the last major update video we'll be doing on this car because it's just going to be lots of, I guess, little but expensive things after today. So this is really the last technical one that we'll be going through, where there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of components that we need to talk about. Just keep in mind, I put together this electrical system a couple of months ago, so some of the products aren't too fresh in my memory, but if I make any mistakes or anything, I'll try to correct them. And if you have any questions, just make sure you put them down below in the comment section. So I'm going to turn you guys around in a second so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. And we're going to basically start at the power sources, then work our way through the car all the way to basically where all the outputs are for things like fridges and lights and things like that. So starting at the top of the car, let me just climb up on here and you can see that I've got my 160 watt solar panel. This one obviously has got a few holes in it, as you can see from some of the trial mounting that I've kind of had a go at trying to get it onto this Rhino rack here, and also from being installed on my previous build. So the plan is probably get something a little bit more slimline, but at the moment this is doing the job fantastically. I have got a couple of different mounts on here as well. These are ones that I made myself, and there really isn't a, I guess, one size fits all bracket that you can buy for, I guess, a solar panel to put onto the Rhino rack system, which is a little bit disappointing, and it did cost me quite a lot of time. Not money, this is a cheap option to do, but it took me a lot of time trying to, I guess, drill things in the right spot and also to mount it on here. So the solar panel is kind of one of the, I guess, components that I use in this build, but I'm actually not using like anything, any power on it at the moment, and I actually haven't yet. So if we go around the car, you can see here I've got an Anderson output. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys in a second what that there is for, but essentially the plan is that's going to be I guess tied into, and that's going to be plugged into the output that I've got, or the input I should call it, at the back of the car. So I'll show you how that looks. The idea is that this can run simultaneously with the DC to DC charger to take load off the alternator when it is powering the lithium battery. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this, okay? So in a typical kind of day, I guess, you could say that yes, this would be powering the lithium battery, all right? And like I said, I'm gonna try and be as detailed and in depth as I can as I'm going, so feel free to skip along to certain parts of the build, but you know, guys, I'm taking my time, I'm being as detailed as possible. So let's keep going. Now in the actual engine bay, guys, I really don't have a lot to show you. A lot of the wiring is tucked away. I did get a professional to do all this wiring for me. You know, it can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It's good that it saved me a bit of time, but there were some things that I wasn't particularly pleased with on this build. But we'll keep going and I'll show you some of the things, I guess, that I can point out to you anyway. So we start here obviously at the battery. So the battery is connected to the DC to DC charger, which is not in the engine bay, all right? The DC to DC charger is actually at the back of the vehicle, which I'm gonna show you shortly. But if we're talking about where everything all starts, okay, it all starts here. So the alternator is powering my DC to DC charger, which goes into the car. So the cables for this runs into the car through to the back where the DC to DC charger is. All right, so that's kind of where we're beginning. So from here, I can kind of guide you towards where some of the accessories start to, I guess, be, utilized. But I think let's just follow the power source for now, because that's what I said we'll do. So we'll try to keep it as orderly as possible. So alternators here, okay, we're powering our DC to DC charger, but not yet. It needs to go down into the car. So it goes into the firewall, okay? And it goes through the car and to the back. All right, so let me just get into the back here. So now we're in the back of the car. Let me just get my torch again, because this is going to require a little bit of handiwork. So we're in the back of the car now. Now in the back here, okay, in the back here behind all this paneling here, is where my DC to DC charger is. You can see I've got this little cubby here, And within there, and again, I'll try to, it's very difficult to light this, guys, so I apologize. But within here, I've got my DC to DC charger. All my fuses and that are behind here, all right? So that's kind of where everything begins. That's where my major power source is being, is converting, you know, all that 12 volt goodness into something I can actually use. And it's going out at 25 amps. So that is in fact a 25 amp Redarc DC to DC charger. Now that then powers a couple of things. I have a power, I guess, cable running from there, which then goes into this, which is my lithium battery. This is a 100 amp hour lithium battery. It is made by a company called Voltax. It's considered one of, I guess, the cheapest lithium batteries you can get on the market. I figured I would try it out. Worst case scenario, it breaks, I get it fixed under warranty. At the moment, it's been running great. Done heaps of corrugations, no issues at all. You can see as well that I've got other accessories, but we're not going to go into that just yet. So you can see that there is a cable running from my DC-DC charger into the battery as I'm getting power from the solar panel and the DC to DC charger and the alternator. It's powering this 100 amp hour battery. The idea is that this is able to power up from 0% all the way up to 100% this battery in 4 hours of driving. Now, if it is already charged up and I've used up, say, 50% of the battery from a couple nights of camping, then I'll be able to basically charge it up in an hour or two of driving, which is very reasonable, you know, going into town, getting something, you know, going to a hiking trail or something like that, and that is going to be charged up 100%. So the only time I'll ever really need to use this, which is my big cable, it's basically just an Anderson to Anderson connector, and it goes and it attaches to one of the cables that I've got in there. I'm sure I could find it for you guys. So this is my solar here, so I'm able to connect basically an Anderson from there, run it outside of the car, and connect it up to my solar panel on top of the roof. So you can see that that's probably good for a long-term setup. It basically saves me having to pack a solar blanket. It's already on the roof, it's already ready to go. But the advantage of doing it this way, as opposed to a solar blanket, is that if I want to and if I can wire it up later, it will actually save some load on the alternator and save me some fuel as I am traveling. So that's the battery, all right? Now, again, I don't want to get too bogged down into details on this just yet, so let's keep moving around the car. So from there, I've got my battery here. It then powers certain things. So I'm able to, from this one cable that runs down here into my DC to DC charger, I'm then able to then control a few things, such as basic stuff like my lights up here, okay? My fridge, which can plug directly into the battery itself, the battery box, and also my small inverter, which allows me to charge up my camera batteries. So some basic things. The other thing it allows me to do, which is a major part of this build, I suppose, is lights. So lights are a very big part of what I do, all right? So whether it's lighting up tracks so that I can see where the campsites are. It's also very handy just in day-to-day life, trying to find things like parks in a dark spot, or, you know, it's very handy. So I'm very happy with those. So those are STEDI lights, and they are hooked up into the car, and I've had a lot of people comment on that and say, how did you get these lights into the car? So the way that we did it was we had to make a compromise somewhere. So some of the options that you have is you can drill into the roof, okay, in an inconspicuous spot, like maybe behind here, and then you can patch it up, cover it up a little bit. That's an option, okay? The other option, which is the option I went for, something a little less permanent. And what it involves is basically, and I'll go around the other side because that other cable that I have coming down is not for these lights. What we have is basically we take this conduit cable here, we combine the lights all together, we run it down here, and then into the car. So that's one way of doing it as well. I've heard of some other ways of doing it, such as, you know, going down the back here and then drilling into here. That's another option as well. Again, I didn't want to drill into the car because there is an option later on, which is basically the final option, which is install a snorkel. Then you can run as many cables as you like through the snorkel into the car. So that's going to be my game plan for trying to get my solar into the car so that I can take that load off the alternator and keep my batteries charged up all the time. All right, so keep that in mind as well, kind of as we're going, that's how we get the solar into the battery to the back, but that's how we get all these lights I've got on the roof into the car going that way. All right, now for the light bar, that's another question I get, is how do we get that into the car? Well, it's the same idea. As you can see, we start here and we go down using the side of the windowsill, going down and then into the vehicle. All right, so that's the other way that we do it. And from there, I'm then able to do a few things. We're able to control these lights using these switches. Now, these switches and this entire electrical system was designed by me. So I made a wiring diagram with some of my previous knowledge and also some of the requirements that I've had, that I have to be able to do what I like, which is photography and also overlanding touring. So what I've done is I put in some lights here. So these little light switch, I bought them and they represent obviously right side and obviously left side. I've also put in here a USB there. That USB basically input does not charge off the second battery. Okay, these are on the second battery all the time. So my car, as you can tell, I didn't turn the car on just then. This car does not need to be on for me to access these lights. All right, which is again very important. And the same thing with my light bar. Let's see if I can get that in vision for you. My light bar there, okay, that again is not on the second battery. All right, for a reason. So that is kind of that setup. The reason why I put that USB there is specifically for my Garmin InReach Mini, all right, which is my satellite communicator, and it's a very important part of my communication when I am away. So far, I've walked you guys through a large part of the build. I've taken you through some of the things like the alternator powering the battery using the 25 amp DC to DC charger. I've taken you through the 100 amp hour Voltax lithium battery, and I have also shown you the Dometic inverter. All right, then I took you through, showed you how we have wired the lights and also how it's connected up and with the extra USB. Those things are of course not all stock on the Toyota Prado. So now there's one last thing I think I have to show you guys, and that is the basically how I run, not the wiring, but how I charge things in the back of the car and how I use the back of the car to basically do my photography and also to do camping, cooking and stuff like that. So that's kind of the last kind of part or last phase of this video. So the most important thing that I had to have was my fridge. Okay, as long as I had my fridge, my battery and my inverter, I was happy. All the extra stuff, of course, I'd planned, such as my extra lights up here. Okay, those were all planned, but these were the bare minimum. Okay, I can get away with the rest of the other stuff, that's fine. They were my luxuries, but these here, these were my must-haves. All right, so I plug in my fridge using a Anderson plug that I made and also attached to a fuse. That then plugs into my battery here. That's how I get power to the fridge. I get power to these lights here by this, which is my, it's a Bungie 12 volt, which I kind of mocked up. I kind of just threw that together because I was desperate to get on a trip and I wanted to use these lights, and nowhere in Cairns had things like Anderson plugs and things like that. So I had to get a bit creative. And so that's how I get my lights. Just plug them in there like that, whack them on, get my lights. Okay, good thing about the Bungie cord too, which is normally of course wired through a little bit nicer, but I just pulled it through just for this example. Another nice thing about it is when I've got it on the slide, it extends, okay, and then it kind of bungees back. So that's kind of a cool thing as well about that I haven't seen before, but I thought, and I didn't even think about it when I was doing it, but I thought, hey, that's actually not a bad idea. So that's the fridge, battery, inverter. Excellent, all going well. Everything works. I haven't had any issues yet. I am a little bit concerned about how everything is tucked in behind here. One thing, that I didn't really discuss with the people that were installing it was having easy access to the fuses. That's something I'm a little bit worried about, but if that becomes a problem later on, I can always get someone else to rip it out, put it into a more accessible place. So that's kind of it for now. I have one more thing that I want to talk about, so I'll turn you guys around to discuss that now. So you might be thinking, Mark, that's all well and good, okay? You've got the battery, all the accessories set up, how I like it, great, I'm happy with it. I showed you how it all runs through the car, awesome. The thing is how do we determine how much, battery you have so that you can use these accessories? Because they do chew a bit of, once you've got all the lights on, you've got the fridge cycling because it's a hot day, you've got your inverter running, how do we determine how much battery life we have left in the big lithium battery? That's where this comes in, which is the Victron Smart Shunt. It's not just an app, it's an actual module that's in there, and it connects via Bluetooth, and it will determine how much 100% is according to basically you drive around, make sure it's at 100%, set that as your parameter, and then you say from there, it will then determine how much amps is being drawn from that 100% that you set. And then from there, it will determine how much battery percentage you have. So it's quite a smart little thing. I'm having a few issues with it at the moment, particularly just because of the way it was set up. So I need to go back to the people that installed this and get them to show me what I'm doing wrong. It will show me the correct percentages at certain times, but at other times it will just shoot back up to 100% with basically no reason at all. So that's something that I guess I'm still figuring out a few little things on this car. One of the things is that, and also to probably getting the fuses in a little bit of a nicer spot. And I'd also like to fix up the rear system here. I've still got seats 6 and 7 in the back here, which is not good because it makes it sit up a little bit too high. As you can see, I've got barely enough room up here for my fridge. So if I can drop it down a little bit more, do an inbuilt, drawer system in here, and then I was going to buy a different fridge as well. That just kind of makes things a little bit better as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. And that's the main part of the build. I mean, I've taken this to a lot of places and I've done quite a lot of trips with the new lights and the battery setup and everything. And so far it's going really well. I'm really liking it. It's a completely different vehicle and it's a completely different build to how I did the Nissan Navara. And I'm really enjoying it at the moment. And it makes me want to go out and I guess it's less stress because I don't have to pack as much. So it's more encouraging for me to go out and do things, which is kind of the idea. If you're wondering about costs and things like that, if there's a specific part of this build that you wanted to know what the cost was, I'm more than happy to put that in the comments. At the top of my head, honestly, guys, I can't remember. It was something like for all of the stuff, and listen, I'd have to piece it all together, hey, with all the lights and stuff that I purchased myself, that's of course, I'm gonna have to add to the price. But, probably looking at about, for all the lights, light bars, I guess, okay, you want to include the battery as well in the battery box, the smart shunt, the wiring for labor, you want to include, all that stuff. It's probably going to run you about $3,000 for the setup that I've got here. I mean, and a lot of it is a lot of the thinking has been done by myself. So you have to keep that in mind as well. If you're going to sit down with someone and do up a wiring plan and a wiring diagram and do all that stuff, that's going to keep costing you more and more money because time is money when it comes to these things. So you kind of just want to have a plan ready to go, some of the pieces that you want, and then obviously talk to your auto electrician and say that this is exactly how I want it to go. And for me, it did save a lot of time. It definitely saved, a lot of mistakes that would have been made by the people that did this otherwise, especially with the way that the four-wheel drive community is now and the aftermarket community is now. Everyone is stressed and stretched for time because there's, people lining up. I had to book this car in about 7 weeks in advance and they still could barely give me, enough people to work on this car to get the job done in a day. So it's a little bit disappointing because you want people to take care and to do the right thing. But unfortunately, when you take it to people, the chances that they might do something that you don't agree with, and then trying to get that fixed when they are so busy obviously is not ideal. And I'm not going to call anyone out or anything like that, but there were some things done on here that were done very well, so I will say that. But there are also some things on here that with a little bit more thought and care and time could have been done a little bit differently. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. So I wasn't going to go into too much detail about the costing and stuff, but if you wanted all the lights and everything, the battery and everything, yeah, listen, $3,000 is probably going to be about where you're at. You know, if you can do a little bit, if you're a bit handy yourself, you can, you know, put in a few things like a basic drawer and stuff yourself there. It's probably going to be right around there. So I'm really happy, like I said, with the setup. If you guys have some suggestions on how I can improve this setup, please tell me. I mean, I really want people to start commenting on these videos more. You know, I've got 400 subscribers now, which is great. I'm loving it. So thank you to those people that have subscribed. But just feel free to give me some ideas. You know, I'm always looking for ideas. The drawers, you know, if you guys have ideas on what I should do with the wheels and tires and lift and stuff, just tell me. You know, like, I think, you know, a lot of people on YouTube and stuff, they, I guess, voice their opinions too much. But, you know, if it's positive and stuff, guys, chuck it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So that kind of about wraps it up. If you have any questions, like I said, ask. But apart from that, that's pretty much the last episode of the build. And that's it. So hopefully I can get things like wheels and tires and, you know, a bull bar and stuff. But, you know, it's just, it's a lot of money, you know, and I, as well as a lot of other people, can't afford this sort of stuff straight away. So it will take me a little bit of time to save up. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. I mean, I have a photography channel that I'm doing as well. So if you guys would like to stick around, hopefully my style of video speaks to you guys a little bit. Obviously, this is not my typical sort of photography video, but hopefully you can check out some of those videos as well. And if that's it, guys, then that's all. So I hope that you can subscribe and do all those things and help me out a little bit. But apart from that, I hope you gain some sort of knowledge from this. I have done, if you want like a step-by-step lithium, like a really budget lithium build that will get you off grid for quite a long time and will be under $1,000. I have made a step-by-step guide on how to fit out your car. I did that on my D22 Nissan Navara. I used a very, very strict budget. I did it all myself, fused everything myself, built the back out on that as well, in the back seat. I built it all out, made it all nice. So if you want, I'm sorry this wasn't a step-by-step because someone else did install this stuff. I have a pretty good idea of how it's installed, but I can't give you, I guess, that inside knowledge. But if you want that, I do have that on this channel. You just have to have a look. I'll put a card up the top for you so you can find that as well. But I have done this stuff before, so you know, if you want that information, I do have it here on this channel. All right, guys, that's going to be it. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll see you in the next video.